You're good at your job. You're competent, you're reliable, you're faithful, but deep down, you know something is just a little bit off. The work that you're doing doesn't really fit who you are. And maybe you're using maybe 30% of your actual gifts that you feel God has given you, but the other 70%, it's slowly just feeling suffocating. I was reading about how fewer pastors find their jobs really deeply fulfilling these days, and I think this might be why. And that's what we're going to talk about today as we continue our series here on the Healthy Church Staff podcast for this week. My name is Todd Rhoades, one of the co-founders. I hope you'll check out the work that I do every day with my team over at chemistrystaffing.com. It's the drift that happens very slowly. Most ministry roles weren't designed. Maybe they were when you took the job, but over time, they've just evolved. Somebody left and you stepped in. Maybe you inherited their leftover tasks or some of them. Maybe a crisis hit and you filled in the gaps temporarily, and those gaps then became permanent. And years later, you're doing work that has nothing to do really with how God wired you. And the job description from 5 years ago is actually, if you pull it out and blow the dust off of it, it's fiction at this point. So you've become the keeper of other people's leftover responsibilities. And here's really the problem with that. You start every week feeling behind, not because you're failing, but because you're fighting your own design. You're spending 80% of your time on tasks that drain you, and the 20% where you actually thrive just get squeezed out. And you begin to question if you're even good at ministry anymore. You're bad at ministry. You're bad at this version of ministry or what ministry has become. Now, nobody did this to you on purpose. Churches grow, needs change, roles expand, but that doesn't mean that you have to live with a job that's slowly killing your soul. So I'm going to give you hopefully some freedom here. And in most churches, this will work, if you're honest. Some churches, so much. But how to have a redesign conversation? And I think you have to think through this yourself before you go to your pastor or the person that you report to. You have to work through some of these things yourself. So here's what I would have you do. Start by naming your actual strengths. Not what you're competent at. That could be something totally different. But name your actual strengths. What energizes you? What work do you do where time just absolutely disappears? You could start doing this, and 5 hours later, you discover that you forgot about lunch. What results come naturally when you're just in your sweet spot? Write that down. Get really specific. And then what I want you to do, now that you've got what really energizes you and what you feel like God's really wired you to do, I want you to audit your current role. How much do you spend in that strength zone? What tasks could someone else do better? What responsibilities don't actually require your unique gifts? And then here's where it may get a little tricky in some churches, so you have to be careful here. But man, in healthy church cultures, this is the kind of conversation that you should hopefully be free to have with your supervisor. Start the conversation with your supervisor, not the I hate my job conversation. Nobody wants to hear that conversation with you. But the I want to serve more effectively conversation, and come with solutions, not just complaints. Because here's what most churches don't realize. When you operate in your strengths, everybody wins. You produce better results with less effort. Your energy stays high instead of constantly depleting. You model healthy leadership for the rest of your team, and the church gets your best energy instead of your best work instead of your leftover energy. And this is not selfish. It's not selfish at all. As a matter of fact, it's strategic. God didn't give you specific gifts so you could just ignore them. He gave you specific gifts and wired you the way that he wired you so that the church and his kingdom ultimately could benefit from them. So here's your bottom line for today. You don't have to survive a job that doesn't fit. You can redesign it to match how God actually wired you. So this week, track your energy for 5 days, the next 5 days. Note which tasks really energize you and which ones drain you. Don't change anything yet, just observe. And then schedule a conversation with your supervisor next week, your pastor next week. Go in with data, not just with feelings, because your gifts matter. Your church needs them unleashed, not buried under somebody else's leftover tasks. That's it for today. Hopefully I've given you something to think about and maybe some homework to try and do over the next 5 days. I'd love to hear your story. Reach out to me anytime, podcast@chemistrystaffing.com. I'd love to hear your story. And if there's any way that we can serve you at Chemistry Staffing, please reach out, podcast@chemistrystaffing. All right, that's it for today. We're here every weekday in the Healthy Church Staff Podcast, so I hope you'll join me right here tomorrow.